Okay, so your plan is based around the storyline appears to be it's a murder mystery thriller type of film, and it's going to revolve around the game Clue or Cluedo, which means that you can go and research several games or several films that have used games as their driving force. There is a film called Clue.
Yeah, we've done our
so that's really good to think about. There's also things like Jumanji, and there's a space one as well. I forget what it's called, but it's very similar sort of idea, and the game almost drives the action. So I really like the idea of what you've been talking about, particularly with we can find a Clue game and you can film elements of the Clue game in a sort of Seven and To Kill a Mockingbird sort of opening sequence of maybe the dice being rolled in slow motion and just bouncing.
Over the head shot.
Yeah, some over the head shot of the Clue board, and then the character being moved in, and then one of you going into the room as that character. That essentially is your opening sequence. It doesn't need to be anything more than that, because what you've done is you set the whole scene and the story. You almost don't need the murder to happen in the opening sequence. Because what you've done is you've implied that it's going to happen.
It wasn't going to be the murder, it was just going to be like flashes of the murder which has happened in the future.
I think it's got real potential. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go away and each of you come up with at least one or two of the images of those scenes to do. So, for example, one of you could say, right, I'm going to go away and look at a Clue board, and I'm going to work out how I'm going to do an over-the-head shot of it, how I'm going to have some of the pieces move on it, how I'm going to do that slow-motion shot of the dice just being rolled and bouncing. And again, there's so much you can do with that close-up. Just that close-up alone. If you particularly used a woman's hand with red nail varnish on it, or really bright nail varnish on it, you're sending a particular story, and then she lets go of the dice, and they bounce just slowly onto the table and come up snake eyes or double sixes and that sort of thing. So you've got real potential for sending a message with that. You've got other pieces within the game. You could have that same hand picking up the toy wrench, and then you could overlay it with that same hand picking up the real wrench.
That'd be good.
You could have that wrench being placed in the room. You could then, in the game, you could also have that same wrench being dropped on a floor and have blood dropping off it as it happens. And do you see how that's almost as much as you need to do, with a few other scenes cut in, and maybe the looks on the faces of the people around the table. And again, the looks on the faces of the people around the table. What about really good close-ups of eyes? Or
we don't want to give away the focus. That's what we were going to do, so you couldn't see.
And we're going to have a spinny thing which spins around with everyone on the table.
That would be a really good idea. But again, do it with elements of the person, so we don't actually see who the people are. Maybe have the lighting behind them, so it's almost a silhouette.
They just all have a certain thing about like the red nails or like the ring.
And all you're doing is giving away things like bright red lipstick, beautiful eyeshadow, and things like that. And I think the thing is, all of you could appear in this and use just features. So all of you, do shots of your eyes. I think that would really work nicely. Do lots of really good close-ups and maybe a smile or just the mouth opening in surprise or that sort of thing. But practice lots of these little close-ups like that.
I mean, as an establishing shot, we thought, because there's a massive manor house in Glinton, and just panning up that sort of thing. What you think?
I think good. Pan up the steps. And that's all it needs to be. Panning up the steps, maybe to the door, and having the door just open slightly. All those sorts of things could work. Maybe another establishing shot from further away at night, particularly if you can get a full moon or branches of trees.
We were thinking of doing it late at night, so it's more dusky.
Get out there and get it.
The light would be better.
Really good.
We just got the graveyard and everything. Just a glimpse of it suggests.
We're going to use my lounge, weren't we? It's a bit.
Okay. I really like what I'm hearing. I think I definitely want to see this storyboarded out, and I want the best way to storyboard it out is that you each go away with a plan of what scene am I going to draw. So one of you needs to draw the outside of the house, 2 or 3 shots of that, how that's going to work. One of you needs to draw the clue board and how that's going to work. One of you needs to draw some of the close-up shots and how you're going to look at those. And somebody then needs to draw the shots of the items being dropped in juxtaposition with each other.
like
So
someone
the
has a
toy of the
spanner.
wrench being dropped and the actual wrench being dropped. And you need to find two things that look almost identical. So if you get a clue game, find in amongst the clue elements which one is it that we can perhaps copy.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that we're most likely to be able to get a real example of and use that. I've said wrench because that's the first thing that came to my mind. But I believe there's a knife or a dagger, there's a gun, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Oh, knife would be easy,
Yeah.
probably, wouldn't it?
Knife would be quite interesting to do as well. You know,
Yeah.
you've got real potential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.